Hi, today I want to answer a question that somebody in my Spanish group presented, which I'm sure that it may help you as well. How can I free myself from the deep sadness that I feel and I have felt since I was a child? The blessing and curse of being a sensitive person is that we can feel the world deeply, and while that includes feeling its immense beauty, magic and love, which is the blessing, it also includes feeling the world's darkness, cruelty, and insanity, which is the curse. When we become too consumed in one side of the spectrum of life, we suffer a lot. Without experiencing the beauty of life, we experience only darkness. And without experiencing the darkness of life, we experience a fabricated lie that leaves us unconsciously uneasy and neurotic. Where does deep sadness come from? This deep sadness occurs in a person's life for many reasons, ranging from tragedy, trauma, chemical imbalance. But for the sensitive person, deep sadness is usually existential. In other words, it involves mourning the self and its relation to life, and life in its relation to the self. It's not uncommon for this deep sadness to begin awakening in childhood. So you can be very young when it starts. As the self begins to develop from a young age and starts to perceive itself as separate from others. I call this the fundamental core wound, as it is as the very core of our suffering in life. And I will expand on that a bit later. When we see ourselves as separate from everything, as isolated little islands that are different or somehow unequal to others, we begin developing emotional and psychological complexes. We start thinking thoughts such as, I'm so different, I'm so weak, I wish I could belong somewhere, I wish I could feel at home, the world has nothing to offer me. All of these feelings and beliefs stem from the unconscious realization that something is not right here and somehow we have been sucked into the wrongness that is inherent in all that we see. This inherent wrongness, this primal anti-truth that is expressed everywhere we look, can be seen in the words, looks, actions, desires, dogmas, perceptions, and beliefs of everyone around us, including ourselves. As sensitive people, we are finely tuned to the tension that always exists between us and others. The jealousy, the betrayal, the insecurity, the hatred, the pretension, as well as the tension between us and the environmental, the abuse, the greed, the destruction, and finally the tension that always exists within us, the self-sabotage, the shame, the fear, the isolation, the hunger for something more kept under a happy, socially approved guise. The more sensitive we are at the end of the day, the more susceptible we are to seeing through the grand ploy, the great fraudulency of life that makes us feel incomplete and unfulfilled. But this sensitivity is a great intelligence, and in fact, I would say it is the greatest kind of intelligence there is. When we talk about being miserable and depressed, we usually want to get rid of it or free ourselves of it. But the truth is that unhappiness is not innately a bad thing that must be destroyed. The only bad thing is what we decide to do with those feelings. Whether we decide to fully experience them and open ourselves to learn from them, or resist them, hate them, fear them, and repress them. Repressing, avoiding, hiding, and resenting unhappiness is the only really true sin here. But it is directly harmful to our well-being both in the short and in long term. The truth is that you are absolutely allowed to feel deeply miserable and unhappy. This doesn't mean dramatizing your unhappiness or using your unhappiness to self-sabotage or using it to self-pity, but realizing that you are allowed to feel sad means realizing that sadness is a normal and in many cases necessary human emotions. Without it, many of the greatest lessons of life will never be learned. In my experience, the greatest lesson to learn as a sensitive person is make us feel special or victimized on the surface. Deeper than that, past our sensations, past our thoughts, past our memories, is the truth of who we really are. And this glimmer of truth, at the very least, brings hope, and at the very most, shatters your entire self-concept, bringing immense liberation, freedom, resolvefulness, and peace. So how do we find this glimmer of truth? How do we finally find a place to call home? A place where we belong, a place where we can rest. The problem here lies in our desire to search. We try to use the mind to cure the mind, but it doesn't work that way. What we can do instead is to give ourselves the permission to purely experience our suffering, our pain and emptiness, not to dramatize, hate, hide, or suppress it, but to consciously feel it. Consciously experiencing pain without resisting it in any way, shape, or form reveals a beautiful miracle. Suddenly, the pain is not there. Suddenly, it disappears. Suddenly, it evaporates in the light of consciousness. The only way you will believe this is by experiencing it for yourself. But what you will discover after the pain is gone? Silence. A deep, pure, loving silence that exists behind every emotions, thought, belief, and sensation. This silence is also known as God, Source, Divinity, Life Force, Nirvana, Eternity, Oneness, and Consciousness. This is the truth of who you are, and darkness paradoxically opens a doorway to experiencing that light. Your sensitivity is just as much as a gift as it is a curse because it allows you to experience this reality more readily than others. Now, how we find balance? This is the question. Once you realize the truth that your identity, sense of self, is an illusory barrier which unnecessarily prevents you from experiencing the limitlessness that is you, you start learning how to laugh at yourself again. But this often requires practice. Deprogramming your mind doesn't always happen in an instant. Some of the most powerful questions you can ever ask yourself include the following. Am I this emotion? I am. Am I this thought? Am I this physical sensation? Am I this circumstance? Am I this body? Am I this personality? Yes, all these elements all belong to you, and you experience them, but are they really you? Who are you? Are you a transient emotion that comes and goes? A thought that rises and ceases? Or a body and personality that ages and changes? Can something so transient and ephemeral really be you? If you are none of these things, then who are you? Deep, constant self-inquiry will reveal that you, who you truly are, has no name, no form, no identity, and no limits. You are everything and you are everyone. When you allow depression to be your teacher, you will see the hidden gift that it has been trying to give you all along. That your true home, your true liberation and freedom has been here all along, within you. You just needed to experience the lie and hopelessness of division to uncover the truth and liberation of what can never be divided.